Last video I theorized that Gravity Falls, Amphibia, and Owl House are in the same multiverse, but is that all? Or are there other potential shows that fit into this theory? In this video we'll be looking into two other shows, Rick and Morty and Star vs. the Forces of Evil. I'll also be looking into some evidence that showed up in the shows I discussed last time. Anyways, let's jump right in. Now, based on the last video's comment sections, you guys really think Rick and Morty is connected to Gravity Falls, and I couldn't agree more. Our first big connection between Gravity Falls and Rick and Morty is the famous portal Easter egg. In Gravity Falls Season 2, Episode 7, we see Grunkle Stan opening a portal. The portal sucks up some items, a pen, a notebook, and a mug with a question mark on it. Now, cut to Rick and Morty Season 1, Episode 10, where Rick is opening a bunch of portals. In the background, we can see the pen, notebook, and the mug with the question mark fall out of the portal. This Easter egg is very compelling evidence that Rick and Morty and Gravity Falls are in the same universe, since it shows some objects have literally traveled from one show to the other. And if that wasn't enough, we can get a better look at these items in the Rick and Morty Ricksterverse. The Ricksterverse is a game made in Instagram where you explore different planets in the Rick and Morty universe. In the prison that Rick was held in, we can see in the evidence locker that these very items are in here too. The fact that these items appear twice makes me think that they're being highlighted. They're being pointed out as something important. I find this bit of evidence of the items traveling between shows to be the most convincing piece of evidence for this theory, but by itself it's still not enough. So let's talk about our favorite triangle, Bill. Now, last episode I talked about how Bill Cipher appears throughout other shows, and how it makes sense since he is an interdimensional creature who observes people from the nightmare realm, so it makes sense that he would be observing people in other dimensions and shows. So where does Bill appear in Rick and Morty? I'm glad you asked, viewer. Bill has multiple appearances. His first appearance is on the screen in the episode where Beth and Jerry are getting couples counseling, as you see here. His next appearance is in the Ricksterverse. In the prison near the evidence room, we can see a computer screen with Bill on it, and it also has the Journal Free symbol on it. The next sighting of Bill is this statue that appears in Morty's Mind Blowers. And finally, in the episode The Whirly Dirly Conspiracy, in the end credits scene, we can see some graffiti that resembles Bill on the wall here. Now, before we move on, I want to address something. The graffiti and statue may not be Bill. Alex Hirsch tweeted, "Y'all kiddos gotta learn to differentiate a common eye of providence from Bill. Just memorize this simple rhyme. Bibbity bop bibbity zill. If there's no top hat, it just isn't Bill." This would mean that the last two examples would not be Bill, but regardless, the first two examples are still valid, meaning we still have two solid cases of Bill appearing in Rick and Morty. But Bill isn't the only one to appear in both shows. We also get a glimpse at one of Bill's henchmaniacs, 8-Ball. In the Rick and Morty episode, Rest and Relaxation, he can be seen in a pile of slime in the toxic waste disposer. Now, while this is probably just a fun nod to Gravity Falls, it's still quite interesting, and it's far from the last piece of evidence. In the Rick and Morty episode, Morty's Mind Blowers, we get some interesting connections. We see that Rick has a hidden room full of memories he has removed. One of the memory files is named Bill-C. Does this mean that Rick has encountered Bill? Well, to make this even more interesting, earlier in the episode, we see another memory vial labeled Stanford. It's quite interesting that the names of two Gravity Falls characters appear in this episode. But the plot thickens even more. In the Gravity Falls comic Lost Legends, we see in the paranormal black market what remains of the Society of the Blind Eye. They have a small stand where they are selling old memories that they've collected, and one of the memory cases is labeled Rick. Maybe this memory is from Ford. Maybe at some point Rick and Ford met and had an adventure together. Maybe something happened that needed both of them to wipe each other's memories. It's just really interesting that both shows have memory wiping devices, and they both have references to each other through the memories. Could Rick and Ford have met while Ford was trapped between dimensions? Maybe, but speaking of Stanford's time lost between dimensions, we have some more evidence relating to that. In the official Gravity Falls Journal 3 book, we get to hear about some of Stanford's adventures while he was lost between dimensions, and there are some interesting parts. Quote, "It feels almost as though I've lived 100 different lives in those dimensions. I've traveled with bandits, learned to speak 13 languages, got in a fist fight with a talking chair, and got tattoos with a tribe of octopus-armed warrior piglets." Now, while that may sound like a bunch of nonsense, the part about getting into a fist fight with a talking chair sounds familiar. In the Rick and Morty episode Close Rick Encounters of the Rick Kind, Rick and Morty are hopping dimensions, and one of the dimensions they end up in is populated by talking chairs. It sounds like both Rick and Ford have both visited this talking chair dimension. But that's not all. On the opposite page from this quote, we can see a wanted poster for Ford with some coded alien language on it. If you decode the message behind Ford, it says Rick was here. This being on the page next to the line about the talking couch feels like too much of a coincidence. It feels like it's being pointed out, like it's being highlighted. And even if Rick and Ford haven't actually met, these two pieces of evidence suggest they have at least both been in the same dimension, pointing to a linked multiverse. But this isn't all Journal 3 has to offer. On an earlier page, we can see some silhouettes of many weird creatures, but a couple of them are fairly noteworthy. Now, if you're familiar with Rick and Morty, then you will probably recognize this shape. It's of course a plumbus.
Everyone has a plumbus in their home.
But the plumbus isn't the only familiar silhouette. We can also see a Zydurian, one of the aliens who tried to scam Rick. And that's not all. Our final hidden character on this page is a character who never actually appears in an episode of Rick and Morty, but it is in the opening of every episode. It's of course Cthulhu. Now while Cthulhu isn't exclusive to Rick and Morty, the silhouette of this particular Cthulhu does look a lot like the one that does appear in Rick and Morty. Now, the official Journal 3 book is written to be canon to the show's lore, so to have so many references to Rick and Morty convinces me that at the bare minimum, Ford and Rick have visited some of the same dimensions. I think that this link, paired with some of the other examples, makes a very strong case that they are in the same multiverse. Speaking of multiverses, in Rick and Morty, there are infinite versions of everyone across the multiverse. Our best example of this is the Citadel of Ricks. We can see countless versions of Rick and Morty, but this is not the only place we see a multiverse that functions like this. In Gravity Falls Lost Legends, we have a story dedicated to Mabel being trapped with a bunch of alternate versions of herself. This shows that both Gravity Falls and Rick and Morty have the same type of multiverse. But we can take this idea even further. We even see a Mabel and Dipper Morty appear on the Citadel of Ricks in the episode Rickshank Redemption. This points to the idea that in Rick and Morty, there are universes where Dipper and Mabel exist. More proof for this is just before we see the Dipper and Mabel Morty, we see a Morty carrying a pile of books. And, of course, one of the books is Journal 3. But Rick and Morty isn't the only time we see a Mabel Morty. In the background of the Lost Legends story Don't Dimension It, we can see a Morty Mabel again. But now, we've discussed all the in-universe connections I could find, I would like to talk about some of the information that takes place outside the canon. Now, if you watch Rick and Morty, you might have noticed this guy. He appears in a few places in Rick and Morty, like in Mr. Goldenfold's dream, and at the party at the end of season 1, and even in the formerly mentioned chair dimension. But why is he important? And how is he related to Gravity Falls? Well, Rainbow Suspenders Guy is actually a clue to a larger Easter egg. You see, on his shirt is a football, and it has stitches on it. The stitches are arranged to be Roman numerals. Now, the numerals are translated into numbers, and then the numbers are translated into letters, which would then spell out a message. But the message is incomplete in Rick and Morty. Now, Justin Roiland and Alex Hirsch have discussed this secret. Apparently, the Rainbow Slacks guy was going to also appear in Gravity Falls and a third show that was cancelled. Because of this third show being cancelled, so was the Easter egg. But he had already been placed in Rick and Morty and was cut from Gravity Falls, leaving the Easter egg incomplete. Now, in case you were curious what the message was going to say, here's a clip of Alex Hirsch and Justin Roiland explaining it.
Whoever cracks our code first is probably somebody who stays at home a lot and is always watching TV and spends a lot of time on message boards, and maybe they spend this time kind of secretly away from social situations because maybe they're a little nervous around people. Maybe they just need a little confidence in their life. So maybe the message should be the word confidence.
Oh my god! That's so dumb. Confidence.
So it was just the word confidence broken into 3 pieces that would be spread apart in 3 different shows.
Now, as you can probably gather, based on the fact that this Easter egg even nearly happened, is that Justin Roiland and Alex Hirsch are friends. They have even done voice acting in each other's shows. For example, Justin Roiland voices Blendin Blendin, the Time Traveler, and Alex Hirsch voices Toby Matthews, a love interest for Summer in Rick and Morty. The fact that these two are friends, and have even planned a secret that spans between the shows, makes me think that it is highly likely that they are both in the same multiverse. They have even done some art of Grunkle Stan and Rick together for charity. Now I quickly want to mention the Rick and Morty clip, The Delicious Taste of Ice Cream. Now in this clip we can see Stanford and Rick talking at a table. Now you might be thinking this is confirmation that they're in the same multiverse, but this is actually a fan animation that is voiced by Justin Roiland, so it's not actually canon, but I don't consider this to be evidence since it's not actually canon. Now, I'll be honest, I think a lot of these are just fun Easter eggs, made to show appreciation for each other's shows, but I still think Easter eggs like the portal and the journal free secrets and the memory references are all really compelling evidence. But what do you think? Do you think this all proves that Rick and Morty is connected to Gravity Falls? Or is it all just fun Easter eggs? Thank you for watching the video, everyone. Now, I know I said I was going to cover Star versus the Forces of Evil and a bunch of other stuff, but the video ended up being about half an hour long, and that's just too long. So I cut this video in half, and I will be uploading the next part next week. So sorry for the abrupt ending, but anyway, thank you for bearing with me. Let me know what you think about the video in the comments below. Hopefully I'll see you next week. Bye!